Hey everybody, Sarah at Nova Motorcycles once again. This week we're going to do a little shop walk before we get into a very cool machine down the road. A little bit of what we have. We're still going strong in September. Shop full of bikes, and a little example of pretty much the wide range of everything that we work on here. So there's a 60s Bull Taco dirt bike, for example, hanging out right here. Just needs a little bit of love. Needs to be ridden around a little bit. That's going to be a fun one. And then over here, a 70s GS 550 Suzuki 4-cylinder in for just some light carb work. Had a leak there. Going back, we got Sparky with us this week, guarding every single movement of us as he does. Some bikes you've seen before, our Z1 that still has a seized motor. DR 350 Suzuki, little dual sport action. A very special Yamaha SR 500, which might be for sale, a cafe bike. Pretty cool. Belongs to a friend of ours. We're kind of just looking it over for him, and the future of that bike is unknown. Some of our bread and butter here, a classic 60s British BSA. Clutch work on this. There's an SRM clutch plate setup that a customer may or may not have done correctly. So we're checking that out. Beautiful pan head back here. This belongs to a good friend of ours from the racing world, 65 Harley pan head. Really nice thing. We're just giving it some love. And getting it back on the road for him. What else do we have here? We have another 60s Triumph. We have a much more modern, but still vintage by today's standards, Harley Davidson twin cam. Classic valve train issues on that. Thankfully, we think that one blew up and did not take out the top end. So that'll be perhaps another video for another time as we talk about how to get ahead of that particular problem. Over here, a couple of bikes that are waiting on parts in this world. This is a early 70s CZ 125 that came in as a complete basket case, and it's actually much closer than it looks to being together. But this thing has been a start stop waiting for parts to come in. International warfare has affected this one. Parts shipping from Eastern Europe took a very long time to get here a couple of years ago, or a year ago, excuse me. And then this is we've done this one before, but our Indian Enfield project, which is just waiting for a, now we realize it needs a crank regrind because the crankshaft used on that particular model is different than the Enfields were. We don't have the shell bearings for it. So all the fun details you run into working on old, particularly weird machines. This, much like the SR 500 over there, is an SRX 600, kind of hot rod version of it. And this is one that we have put together for a guy. We actually rebuilt the motor. The motor is from an XT600 dirt bike, same thing, but we put some of his hot go fast goodies in it. You see our carbs, this cool pipe, and it is just waiting for. I think at this point we're just waiting for like a brake to be finished or something. We're really close on that one. RT1 Yamaha, we've seen this before. The customer brought it back, and we threw an electronic ignition in for him, make it a lot easier to start, a lot less likely to foul plugs. Always a good idea on a vintage 70s two-stroke dirt bike. So that's about to get back out the door again. But what we really want to talk about today is this machine here. This is a 70s Shovelhead chopper. Now, if you saw a few videos ago, we had a Triumph bobber in here. I mentioned a little bit of it, like, is it a chopper? Is it a bobber? What do you call it? In the era when people are putting like knobby tires on bikes with clip-ons and calling them cafe racers, what do you call anything? This one, without a doubt, this is a chopper. This is a real old school, honest chopper. It has a pedigree, really special pedigree, in that this paint job was done by the one and only Dean Lanza. He was the guy who painted the bikes for the Easy Rider movie. And we actually now have the paperwork. The guy who owns the bike dug around in his stash, found the receipt from the sale of this bike when he bought it in the early 80s. Dean Lanza listed as one of the build members. And, that's kind of cool. So just to put it out there, this bike will be going up for sale. We want to sell it to somebody who appreciates the pedigree of this bike. Real quick, what it is, it's a late 70s. If I want to remember, I think it's a 77 FXE Harley. That was one of the last of the 1200s that they made right before they switched to the 1340. Now 1340 is a number Harley used for a long time after that. But it was built by Cycle Delight, which is a now defunct Southern California chopper shop. San Diego, I want to think. I believe they were in San Diego. in the early 80s. It actually made it into a magazine at one point. We've searched far and wide trying to find what magazine it was in, if we could find it. If you're out there and you have old issues of Chopper magazines from the early to mid 80s, take a minute and scour it. We would love to buy an old copy of the one that has this one in it. Yeah, so it's an FXE. When we first got the bike from the customer, it looked pretty much just like this with a different front end on it. It had a panhead single-sided front brake shoe, and it looked cool, but it really didn't do anything to stop the bike. And the owner at that time wanted to get back on it. This was his old bike. He'd kept it in the barn since he stopped riding it in probably about the 90s or so, and wanted to make it a little more rideable on the street. So we put this front end on for him, which is a replica, repop Springer front end. Looks like it's from the period. Looks like it should have been there anyway. The only thing that doesn't fit is the disc brake. But boy, does that really help when you actually want to stop your bike going down the road. Other than that, our mission on this bike was to preserve it. Definitely, we did not want to mess with the paint at all. So we cleaned the paint, but we've kept all the chips and stuff that it had from riding right back when it was ridden. And we did go through and re-chrome some stuff. The pipes are also repops, but almost everything else on here is re-chromed original stuff. And with the idea that we wanted to keep it as intact as possible, that this was a bike that had some history to it. So we did a mechanical restoration on it. We went through the gearbox, made sure, new seals, made sure everything was okay in there, a couple of bearings in there, tore down the top end, went through, checked out the crank to make sure that was fine. New pistons, rebuilt the heads, new valves, I believe. Could have to double check our notes on it. New push rods, full top end rebuild. And then we threw a electronic ignition in there. So it's much like the RT1, just easier to start, less likely to foul plugs, easier to run. All that good stuff, and it is pretty reliable. We've had a good time riding it around. I mean, it really feels like a chopper should. It goes really great in a straight line. Gets real funny when you go around corners on it. Sounds amazing. Straight pipes, drag pipes on a 1200cc Shovelhead just sounds like what you think a Harley ought to sound like. And it gets looks wherever it goes. It's as I said a minute ago. This is a real live chopper, the way they were in the Easy Rider movie. It looks not unlike Dennis Hopper's bike in the Easy Rider movie. Very much the same kind of style. So we love working on stuff like this. If you know our brand, we're not the chopper brand, but we are the history brand, and we do love bikes with pedigree. And you cannot escape that the American chopper, Easy Rider in particular, is the quintessential motorcycle in the history of the motorcycle world. So chime in with any comments about the bike, any questions you have about it. We'd love to answer them. If you want to buy it, hit us up. We would love to find the home for this, where somebody sees what it is, realizes what it is, and wants to preserve the history of American motorcycling. So and thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.